what I've noticed lately is there is an abundance of seminar flyers out there or adverts for seminars that contain like a huge running list of topics, all manner of topics that, in my opinion, it'd be impossible to cover in the time allocated for it. It seems as though there's like I guess, a trend of, the more you write on your seminar flyer, the more appealing it will be to people. And, the more you'll get out of it, which, in my opinion, couldn't be further from the truth. But yeah, I'm sure you've seen a few of those recently.
Oh, recently and for the past, I don't know, 30 years maybe. But yeah, absolutely correct. I think the word to use would be ambitious if you look at the content and the time, and then take it to the other factor of the amount of participants that they're hoping to get, because a lot of those seminars are the open enrollment, aren't they? So the more they get, the better, to be honest. I just find that, when you plan a seminar, and I have whole modules where we're looking at, teaching this sort of stuff and practicing it and polishing it up. So we're offering the best seminar, course, class, whatever. The factors to look into here are, as you said there, the time is the big one, because you can't mess around with time. You can't play around with it. It is what it is, But then that plays against content, and some content is a lot more involved than other content. So if you were to say, you see on a seminar and it says striking, okay, that's a fairly broad topic, broad spectrum. And then they also have something like grappling, and you think, okay, so all right, that's a career all taught in a day,
Yeah.
And then they'll add things like weapons, knife defense, and I think everybody's of the same mind that knife defense must be the most difficult of all the scenarios we aim to kind of train for, to be able to survive, not even defend, but but survive a close range attack with an aggressive man armed with a knife. That must rank up there as being the nightmare scenario, which you cannot just shoehorn on or just tag on as an afterthought to a seminar. You just can't. You simply can't. I'm teaching tomorrow my knife management package, which is 2 whole days. And even then, the first thing I will say is manage your expectations, because this is just an introduction, and it's 2 whole days. And there's not even any filler in there. There's no hour wasted looking at different kinds of knives and statistics and things like that. It's all practical. And it's 2 days. And I know I don't have enough time there.
Yeah.
And I have a maximum of 10 people on that course. Absolute maximum, 10 people. So to go back to the original thing, you see a flyer. I mean, I've seen crazy flyers, 2-day air marshal training. It's like, come on. It's people just kind of just jumping on that bandwagon, selling a dream to people, and fine. If it's an experience, it's a bit like spending a day as James Bond, spending a day on the racetrack, it's one of those things. Fine, it's an experience. But what are you actually training? What are you teaching? Or more to the point, what are people learning, to be quite honest? I'll have a thing where we'll look at this stuff in depth, and we'll time manage things and how to build a seminar. So, all right, what's the content going to be? Okay, first thing you look at, how much time have I got? All right. Then you will look at, all right, how many people have I got? To be honest, because if I was going to teach one technique, and now this is all theoretical maths, and I'm no mathematician, but theoretically, if I've got 1 hour and I'm going to teach one person one technique, then I can give that person 60 minutes of in-depth personal instruction. Okay. Not that any kind of seminar, if you don't get personal instruction off the instructor and you're teaching yourself, so you've paid a lot of money to stand at the back of the class and teach yourself something. You really should be going, because I want that guy to teach me that thing, know. So anyway, back to the maths. 2 people, obviously, it goes to 30 minutes each. Now, there is obviously a bit of a bleed over that as I'm training you, your buddy's getting some of that same information to him and things like that. Okay, but it's an exercise. It's a thought exercise more than an actual realistic scientific experiment. Okay. But then, all right, and if you've got 4 people for one technique in an hour, they're getting 15 minutes each. And if you start doing the maths and you start adding, and you start adding up and subtracting and multiplying and all that sort of business, the average seminar then that's got 40 people, all right? I mean, what? 40 people? Imagine you've got 4 hours and you've got 40 people. Well, people aren't getting a lot of instruction. They get about 6 minutes of instruction per person for one technique in 4 hours there, So if you start adding now, okay, we're going to do 10 techniques. You can work all this stuff out if you really want to, but it's more of a thought experiment, like I say. That will then go to seconds worth of instruction per person. All right. And when you start doing it, it's quite telling. You start realizing, shit, there's not a lot of time at all, to be honest. And this is, like I say, it's a very rudimentary model, and it's not taking into account how long it takes to explain the thing, to demonstrate the thing, how long it even takes to walk around the room. Because when you start time managing your courses, this should all be taken into account, in my opinion. And that's what I do. I will do a mental run through of every course I teach, to time it. I'll, literally sit for the day and I'll work out, okay, how long will it take me to say this? All right. How long will it take me to walk around a room and then confirm it with everybody, and then walk around again and confirm it with the other guy when guys are training as a pair, and then how long will then, to teach the next thing. And I'll do the whole course like that. And that's why my courses finish with no extra time, but no overtime. I finish on time because I want to finish on time. I don't want to run out of time and then I haven't taught half the stuff I wanted to teach, or end up with an hour spare, which I haven't really factored in, and we could have done an extra hour of training on the things that are important. That's the thing. So it's great having extra time to teach something new, but it means that you didn't have as enough time to teach the stuff you wanted to teach, you didn't spend enough time teaching what you want to teach. So I think that's a big thing. So you see, striking, grappling, ground defense, fighting from cars, weapon defense, offensive use of the knife, all that sort of stuff, all wrapped up into a 4-hour half a day or a 5-hour half day, whatever. And I just think that's ambitious. You may be very successful getting people to go to the seminar, because who doesn't want that magic to learn everything with no real outlay in time? But you're not going to be very successful from an actual teaching point of view, because people aren't going to learn anything from that. You must have had the same kind of experiences though, with people's expectations of how much they can actually learn in a certain amount of time.
And it's funny that it's different from it for everyone. Some people get things instantly. Then you have your others that you need to spend, much longer. Like if I run a particular module or something, and some people, you're done in half hour. Other people, it'll take them several weeks. And to cater for all those different levels within a group is pretty tough. One of the biggest challenges of it.
Yeah, people turn up kind of already half trained. Basically, they've got a background in a lot of other stuff, or they've got very high levels of physical intelligence where they can pick up things very quickly. And in reality, they need the least work. The people who need the most work are the people who have low physical intelligence, don't have a background in things. But I mean, what do we normally see is the people that make you feel good, you kind of gravitate towards them, don't you? And we're just talking honest here. So you have to fight the urge, I think, to spend all the time with the guys, or with all the cool guys. Because they validate you as an instructor, because look, he got it straight away and he's doing it great. It's the guy with 2 left feet that makes you feel bad as an instructor, because ultimately it is his fault, right? I mean, I've had this with a lot of people, that people say, no, there's no such thing as a bad student, just bad instructors. It's like, no, that's bullshit. That really is. People have the attitude sometimes, and they turn up and they don't put any work in. They just expect by being there, some sort of osmosis, they're just going to get good at something. Or they did all their hard work getting there, and that's over to you now. And if they're not going to be an expert, then it's your fault. So I think, there is something towards, as a good instructor, you should be able to facilitate people learning, but ultimately the onus is on them. you can't download the information into their head. They're the only person that can teach themselves, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And if they're not going to put any effort in, then what can you do?
Yeah.
You know, I do feel there's a massive cop out there, and people talk about learning styles and all that bullshit. It's been debunked now for what, 20 years, that people do not learn better according to their preference of audio or visual or whatever. They just don't. They've proven it. You know, they might prefer to watch videos and learn, but they don't learn better that way.
No.
And all that happens is you end up starting to have to pander to people, and then it upsets everybody else. You know, 30 people in the class that all want to learn a certain way, and it's like, no, come on. If it was proven to be better, then okay, there's something in that. But it's been proven not to be better, so why are we still doing it?
Yeah.
Because feelings, I suppose. You know.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you should focus on the people that need the most time.
Yeah.
I think
it is challenging. It is challenging to do.
You want to stay with the guys who will make you feel good. You know.
Yeah.
The moment you teach him how to do that punch, he's got a killer punch, or you can pull off that submission immediately. Like, wow, he's great. And the guy that's just not getting it, he's just thinking, oh, okay. Reality though, yeah, you got to put that to one side, and he's the guy that needs all the work. To be quite honest, you know. But then that kills your timings as well, because you've got to, at some point, if you're on a schedule, there's a cut-off period, and you have to say, okay, you just need to work on this more yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you can't stay with that one guy the whole session. But I mean, we're getting back to, you know, the content. If you go to, say, a BJJ workshop, it might only cover one technique, the guillotine. You know, and that to me, I think that's somebody who's thought about that, and they can get some real depth on that now. 4 hours just on the guillotine, and they can look at how to get the guillotine from here, how to get it from there, and you know, it's great. If that was all of a sudden 20 submissions in 4 hours, no one's going to learn anything from that, unless they've already gone 98% good. Yeah. That's my approach to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some quite ambitious seminars out there, I think, you know, that just can't. The laws of physics prevents them from teaching what they promised to teach. The biggest culprit for me would be the corporate training, you know, and it's one of the reasons why I've never gone into it, and it's never really interested me, because you've always got that expectation of, well, we've got 2 hours and we want you to do this, this, and this. And that's not the conversation to have, in my opinion, you know. It's like when that guy comes to fix my washing machine, I don't tell him exactly how I want him to do it. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't say, I need it done in 15 minutes, mate. You know? He's the one that looks at the thing, says, okay, we need this, this, and this. This is how I'm going to have to do it. It's going to take this amount of time. And what I do is I go, okay, you're the expert. But, you know, the corporate stuff, I always see it, and I always, well, you know, raise my eyebrows. And you've got a lot of office people that don't train, won't train. They want to cover everything from awareness to, and I've seen it, knife defense, you know, and they're going to do it in a couple of hours. And it's great because everybody's smiling on the photographs and, you know, half-assed hitting pads and doing wrist releases or whatever they're doing, and then knife defense. And it's like, okay, gotcha. And it keeps the HR department very happy because they can tick a box saying training has been provided. All those people in the office have had a great time away from their desk, you know, and you can charge a lot of money for that. There's a lot of money in corporate training. Mm-hmm. However, there is no quality in corporate training, in my opinion. The moment I see it delve into anything kinetic, you've lost me now straight away.
Yeah.
2 hours talking about awareness, talking about assessing situations, talking about, you know, observing things. Fantastic. All day long. I'm all behind that. And that's all I will do in that situation. But when they ask you, oh, could we also do a bit of, and then they'll add like knife defense or something like that. Defense against punching. And some of our people have said, though, they're a bit worried about this. So can we cover that as well? And you just say, nope. And they get very disappointed. You know, And I've been before, and I've spent an hour explaining why that's not really possible. And all they'll do is they kind of nod, pretending to understand, and then the ultimate, well, the classic line, "But can't we just do a little bit?" And you're like, oh, didn't get it, just straight over their head.
Yeah.
You know, that's like doing a little bit of crossing the road and surviving being hit by a car.
Yeah.
Let's just do it. You know, you could explain to somebody just how impossible it would be, you know, but they still want it. So can't we just do a little bit though? Right. No. No.
Yeah.
Let's spend that time talking about how to cross the road without being hit by a car. Fantastic. But you start delving now, and like I say, look, you know, hand me the average, say, office worker. Me attacking that person would be like them getting hit by a car. There is nothing we can cover in 2 hours that's going to kind of mitigate that at all.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm invulnerable, you know. However, just on physicality, probably I could absolutely destroy them, you know. And there's people out there a lot stronger than me, a lot bigger and tougher than me, you know. Same as a car hitting you. You just can't. You just got to accept your limitations and say no. Let's spend the time doing something useful, non-kinetic stuff. As soon as I see that, as soon as I see any hint of half-assed palm strikes with everybody laughing and joking and things like that, knife defense, stop now. You've lost me. You've lost me. You know, we've got 2 hours. What do you do if you fall into the North Sea? What can you teach us to survive? Nothing. You know what I mean? Well, you know what I mean? You know, North Atlantic survival. You know, how long have we got? 2 hours. All right, open your mouth and swallow as much water as you can. Try and die as quickly as you can. You know, that's about. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but
it's if you're a realist, you have to say it.
You've got to. I mean, I constantly hammer that thing that the scenario would be like, you know, the equivalent. You're upstairs in a burning building. You've got two options. You know, do I stay and do nothing, burn to death, or do I jump and possibly die from the fall? And people are like, I don't like those two options, and I mean neither. You know, I mean neither. And I've been in that burning building as well, and I wish there was a third option. I wish there was something. There was some sort of magic.
Yeah.
But all the buts are no, nothing's going to save you that way. There's no technique where you don't get burnt by the fire. There's no technique where you survive the fall. Yeah. You know, it is what it is. You got to manage your expectations on this. Violence is beyond the reference of most people, and the reference is, or the realistic reference, the reference is from watching movies. You know, when Jason Bourne fights two fucking guys and destroys them. And I just think it's like, you do realize he's not a real guy. You know, you do realize that that's Matt Damon. You know, that's not Jason Bourne. Matt Damon's an actor. He's not an operative. That fight you just saw there, they rehearsed that for 6 weeks. They filmed it in 5-second little blasts and put it all together, you know?
Yeah.
And I just don't think people grasp that because they've watched the movie and that is their form of reference. And the funny thing is, they've usually seen a real fight. That's possibly why they're in front of you right now, because they saw a real fight. They nearly got in one. They got in one. They got hurt. And they want to learn something. And they've come to the market leaders, the martial arts guys, who can teach them how to defend themselves. Because there must be some way of doing it, yeah? And they've seen the real thing, but they don't like the idea of that. They want it to look like the Jason Bourne thing, but there must be an easy way of doing it.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
It's got to be.
You know what I mean? That's like, go and see that guy who's just done his 4 years physics degree and say, 4 years? There must be an easier way of doing this. Yeah, there is what it is.
Yeah, that's it.
Thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's that, you know, barring inheriting a company, you know, you work your way up to CEO, don't you? You don't just start there. You know, infantry training in the military in Britain is about 30 weeks, give or take, depending on what unit you're with. So 30 weeks. Now, you must say, like, must be an easy way of doing that. You know, like, can we not just join at, like, week 25? You know what I mean? Why do we have to do all that other stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys don't get the process of training a lot of the time. You know,
No.
they really don't. Um, you hear quite a lot about, you know, in our system, in our method. And I think the problem with that is they don't really have a system and they don't really have a method. They've got a collection of stuff. And a lot of the time it's their favorite stuff. You know, quite rightly, they've seen something that looks great. They've taken a bit from this, taken a bit from this. You know, that's not a system, though. There has to be some sort of progression when you train as well. You know, that, you know, you don't build a house from the roof down, do you? You know, you've got to put in that the hard yards and build the hole and put the concrete in, and then leave that to set, and then start adding bricks to it. And it's a progression that you can't build the second floor till the first floor is done, and you can't put the roof on. And I say, like, going back to military training, that would be it. You know, you can't join at week 10, because what you do in week 10 depends on what you did in week 9, and what you do in week 9 depends on what you did
the progression
in week 8, and so on. There is a chronological kind of aspect to this as well, if you know what I mean. And that's where you sometimes see at courses as well that the absence of that, there is no systematic way. Guess what? You know, if you're going to have a system, it has to be systematic.
Yeah.
It's kind of in the word, isn't it? You know, if you're going to teach a method, it's got to be methodical. You know, it's in the word. So you do see a bit of a spider web thing going on. We got a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of this, and nothing really ties it together. You know, you've got to have that kind of common thread. And people often denigrate a linear process because apparently it's not, you know, the new way. You know, non-linear is the way. You know what I mean? Like that linear stuff. But you got to kind of think about, well, you've got to get to a certain point before you can start doing all that non-linear ecological dynamic stuff. You've got to get to a certain point before you can really kind of take off the parking brake and then just explore different things in different areas, you know?
Yeah.
That linear process gets you there. And most of the studies they've done on this as well, say if it was going to be basketball, I think we've talked about it before, they've kind of overlooked the fact that everybody is intimately acquainted with basketball before they did the test. But to get intimately acquainted with it, they would have had some sort of linear process. Their dad would have showed them how to hold a basketball and how to bounce it and then how to throw it. There's always going to be an element of that to get you so far, and then you get rid of it. But you can't start without it. Otherwise, you just don't have the foundation. You know, you don't give a gun and a lot of bullets to somebody and say, we're not going to do all that linear process bullshit. You just get yourself on the range and have a great time. Figure it out. In the same way, you don't throw the keys at a non-driver and just say, crack on, son. See how it all works out for you.
Yeah.
You get so far with it. And I think most people miss that. If you know what I mean. Most people miss that. You've got to have a foundation.
Yeah.
Did I tell you the...
Sorry.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the seminar content too. Quite often you need to, you know, have a base understanding of this before you can go on to the next bit and progress to this and this and this. And going back to the students, like those ones down there, the undesirables, stop the whole process happening. And
what I like to do on a seminar, I like to tell a story. So I like to build something. So it's not all I do, but if we use, say, the punch as a vehicle just for this conversation, you know, you teach people how to do a punch, all right, with good mechanics and things like that. And then you can add a layer to it. So you can add, like, okay, how do we punch something that's moving at you? People do, you know. How do you punch something that's moving at you and then there's an obstruction in the way? How do we deal with the obstruction to punch the thing moving at you? You know, and then we start building those layers into it. So we're actually, you know, again, we are creating something rather than here's a technique, here's another technique, here's yet another technique. I like to follow a theme with what we're doing and build something around that with layers. And the great thing about a layered approach then as well is if you've got a very a disparate kind of experience level in the class, the guys without so much experience can stay on the very kind of basic format of the thing. And the guys with more experience, they get to add the layers quicker, if you know what I mean. So you might still be, you know, if you're a novice, you might still be kind of getting the mechanics of a basic punch dialed in. And this could be anything. Could be a guillotine, an arm bar. It could be a kick. It could be anything. Well, the punch is a vehicle. You might need the extra time to get that dialed in, so that's fine. You know, the guy next to you might be a lot more experienced, so he's already got that dialed in. So now it's more about, can you do it on the move? But the same thing you're doing, but he's doing it on the move. And then the guy next to him might be even more experienced, so he's doing it on the move and dealing with an arm that's suddenly put up in the way, you know?
Yeah.
But you're teaching the same thing, and it makes it very easy to teach various levels in the same class, and you're all pointing in the same direction and all on the same page. Some people are just a little bit deeper into the thing than others. And I found that to be very effective when I'm training people. But again, it's telling that story. It's having, you know, it's like storyboarding your seminar almost like it's a movie or a cartoon strip. You know, there's a beginning, there's an introduction, there's a main bit, and then there's the end, isn't there? You know, so there's a conclusion to it. I find that works rather than just a smorgasbord. Is that the right word? Smorgasbord? A buffet of stuff.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You know, great, have a starter, have a main course, have a dessert. But if you've just got a buffet, you know, I find that to be not as productive, is all I'll say. I think that's fantastic for interest if you want an experience. But like we talked about earlier, you know, if you've got 60 people in a seminar, and that's not uncommon sometimes, it's like, okay, how much personal attention is everybody getting? You know,
next to nothing.
So I work on my teaching model will be explanation, demonstration, imitation, confirmation. So I'll explain and demonstrate the thing, or more likely I'll explain it but get other people to demonstrate it. And I prefer to do that because I might just be really good at it, and you might never get that level. I don't want people being impressed by my performance. I want people being impressed by their performance. So quite often I'll explain a technique and I'll get two guys out from the audience, so to speak, and they will do the demonstrating. Now, it won't be perfect straight away, but if everybody's watching me coach these two people into competence in a matter of seconds, it gives people a lot of confidence that they could do that as well. If I just put on the Mick Coop show, people just go, wow, Mick's really good at that, but they're not confident that they could ever be good at it.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. And that was born of teaching women once upon a time. And I once got asked that question, you know, but that'll work for you, but what about us? And that from that moment on, I really stopped demonstrating stuff, and I used people from the crowd to demonstrate the stuff for me.
Yeah.
And that really hit home at it, actually. You know, I was like, yeah, you know, you've got a very good point there.
Yeah.
So I'll explain it. It'll get demonstrated. People will grab a partner, you know the drill. They go off in the, you know, huge big sports hall, and they'll make sure they walk as far as they can before they stop and start to train. You know, and it's like, why have you done that?
Cover all this stuff. Yeah.
You'll send the sheepdog out after them to bring them back, haven't you? You know, and it's like, why? Or they'll stand all over my stuff, which is usual, to be honest. That gravitational field that all my personal belongings tend to have, and everybody tends to train on top.
Yeah.
Which irritates me. But anyway, so then I'll go around and I want to confirm everybody's got it. So if you've got partners, we call them, you've got an A and a B on the partners. So I'll go around and check all the A's, and then on the next pass, I'll check all the B's. But I take it as a personal thing that if I don't get to speak to every single person about every single technique, that's a failure on my part. Because I left one guy in that whole seminar to teach himself that thing. And that's not what he came for, and it's not what I came for. So that's a personal thing for me. So then when I look at seminars that are 60 people, you know, and they've got a lot of techniques or a lot of content that they want to teach, so you know they're not going to give it a lot of time anyway, and then those 60 people means that it's impossible to see everybody, and I really dislike that. I don't think people pay the money for that. You know, I wouldn't feel happy teaching that seminar. You know, I once did a very big seminar like that, and it was against my kind of wishes. We left it up to a host to gather all the people, to arrange it all, things like that. I turned up and I think there was about 90 at a sports hall somewhere in Italy, just in the outskirts on the mainland of Venice, I think. And we were in different rooms even.
Yeah. Well,
Now that host thought it was the best seminar ever because he made a killing.
yeah.
For me, it was just I was teaching for an interpreter as well, for a translator, which is never, because it's like I know what I'm trying to say, but what are they hearing through this
Yeah. Yeah.
guy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the stuff
Yeah.
I'll teach is quite nuanced as well. I mean, if you're going to start talking about impact dynamics, it's like, the nuance that you don't put your weight behind a punch, you put your punch in front of the weight. That nuance, which you can imagine through translation to another language, probably sounds exactly the same both times.
Yeah. Yeah.
So people probably look at you like, what? But yeah, 90 people in different rooms, and I just thought, what's the point? And I,
Yeah.
it wasn't a great seminar. It was the worst one I've ever done, probably.
Yeah.
Although the other guy, obviously, he bought himself a new car. I don't know what he did, but he certainly didn't. I get an extra 2 guys on one of my foundation courses, and it throws all my timings out. Just an extra 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. Makes good photos though. Good promo photos.
Well, yeah, it's a great photograph afterwards, and it looks like, wow, look at that. It's like, no, if you know what you're looking at, nobody learned a thing that day.
Yeah.
Nobody learned anything that day they couldn't have learned from a DVD.
Yeah.
Because they didn't get any coaching. And I'm a big believer in actual coaching. I don't like the monkey see, monkey do stuff.
Yeah.
How do you tune a car up? Well, you don't just drive it more. You pull the car over, you get into the engine, you start taking pieces out, you clean them up, you put them back, you run the car again. That's how you tune a car up. That's how I coach people.
Yeah.
So it's a very 3-dimensional process almost, if you know what I mean. So teaching it 2-dimensionally from a distance is not the same effect, to be quite honest. No. I'm not a big fan of it. No. And that's why I've never really gravitated towards the video instruction stuff, because with the current technology of how it is, really, I just can't teach the way I want to teach. And I just think, well, I'm not teaching that stuff there. It's great. It's a great money spinner, and it's great for getting your name out there, and it's great for publicity. It's great for, getting a following or whatever. I just think it's a very, very poor teaching medium.
Yeah.
So I don't do it. There's a reason why you don't do a degree course. If you want to go do, I don't know, electronic engineering in the University of Tokyo, you go to Tokyo. Because I do get guys saying, do you have video stuff? Because I live in Australia or I live in wherever and I can't get to you. And I'm like, well, I've got a very good distance learning program. And they're like, okay, what's that? I says, well, you travel the distance and we'll do some learning.
Yeah.
There it is. Sorry. But that's the way I teach stuff,
Yeah. That's good.
Which is,
keeps the integrity in it.
Well, I'm not saying that people aren't doing a good job of it. I'm not really interested, to be quite honest. I just know that I don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I could do a good job teaching via video. I can coach a guy and I'll tell people, if I can't make you, again, let's just fall back to the punch stuff. If I can't make you hit probably about twice as hard in about an hour, which I'm pretty guaranteed I can, then I give you your money back. But there's no way I can do that over a video. I can definitely do that to a person one-to-one. Definitely, by tweaking this, tweaking that, changing the timing of when your body moves and things like this. There's all the good biomechanical stuff. Other people teach power by just saying, well, just hit harder. And you think, okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, I like that. I see what you're doing there. You know what I mean? Coaching. But there's a lot of stuff you can do if you know what you're doing. It's like, why do golf pros charge so much money for their private lessons? Because they improve your golf game.
Yeah.
But can they do that by video? I don't think so. So again, it's a hot topic. I get emails every week asking me, and the answer is usually the same, that it's not my way.
Yeah.
If I don't want 60 people at a seminar because I can't speak to everybody in person, I certainly don't want to send somebody a DVD and go, you carry on, son. It's not how I do it.